Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by Die Hard. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
And that's Alec Webb, our announcer on MotorWeek. And welcome, everyone, to our MotorWeek podcast number 107. I am John Davis, at least last time I looked. And joining me today around our table in Studio C at MotorWeek World Headquarters is writer, producer, and two-wheeling reporter Brian Robinson.
Hey-o.
Our road test producer, Ben Davis.
Hello.
Our assistant producer, Greg Carlos.
That's me.
And our writer extraordinaire, Patrick Lucas.
Put the music back on.
It sounds better. We've got a lightning round. We've got a viewer question. But, you know, we're all about cars on Motor Week. And this time we're going to start off with one of the biggest shootouts that we've done, challenges in recent years. Our latest Midsize Sedan challenge. And for kind of the details on what went on there, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Robinson.
All right. Well, yes, 10 vehicles. Midsize Sedan segment is obviously a very popular one. A lot of entries. So it was interesting. It was typical challenge that we do with Cars.com and USA Today. We had 10 of them. And
could you say, what do you think about the state of the midsize sedan? Were they all fine?
Yeah, I mean, they're all great vehicles for sure. Like I said, it's one of the most popular vehicle segments out there. So I think everyone, all the manufacturers take it seriously. And, you know, you're not going to buy a bad midsize sedan right now, I wouldn't think. Really, it came down to just details, you know, what you get for the money. Comfort, noise was a big thing. Some cars are extremely quiet, you know, in luxury car territory, and some are kind of loud and obnoxious. I mean, that makes a big difference if you're going to drive the car every day.
Do you remember the Subaru being particularly loud?
Subaru Legacy was super quiet. It was one of the quietest that we had. Yeah. They definitely stepped that up.
We were very impressed with that when we did our
Did you think otherwise?
It might have been. I can't remember what it was now because I remember something being really loud, and I think I just am thinking of a different one. But
not to get too off topic, but when all 10 cars were lined up outside, I was amazed how similar they all look to one another.
Yeah, yeah. If you put them all in profile silhouette, you
especially
would have
profile.
No idea.
It's always called the refrigerator class.
Yeah. Well, it's all about packing the most amount of space that you can in that body shape. And making it somewhat attractive looking, and there's only so many directions you can go with that.
I mean, you're talking about a vehicle that's got to carry really 5 adults.
5 adults and a lot of trunk space for carting groceries. And
without spoiling the results
Spoiler
too much,
alert.
Did you agree with the top 3 or 5 or the rankings in general?
Yeah, for sure.
Knock off the top 4.
Yeah, I mean, the winner was the Hyundai Sonata, which really wasn't a surprise. I mean, some of these comparisons we do, you know, it's kind of obvious from the get-go what's going to win. Some come right down to the wire, but this one, it wasn't so obvious. But, I mean, the Sonata is always a lot of features for the money, and that's what a lot of people look for.
But number 2 was kind of a surprise.
2 was the Legacy, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Subaru Legacy. I mean, the only all-wheel drive car in the pack, and up till a few years ago, not really a contender in this class.
Yeah, they definitely took it seriously with this latest redesign. As I said earlier, super quiet. Also, safety features, which are a big seller. You can get the eyesight, which a lot of people say is the best system out there, and consumer reports and all that.
And so forth.
Yeah, and it's cheap. I think it's around $1,000 or under. So, you know, we had a price cap on this as with all the comparisons. So it's interesting to see what manufacturers kind of put a priority on, whether they want a lot of the comfort features or whether they want to go with, you know, the sporty styling or however they want to go. But you can kind of get it all with the Legacy. So that was second. Third was the Passat, Volkswagen Passat.
Yeah.
And that was surprising for sure. And
that's on its last leg, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an older design. I think it's really just how huge that car is inside.
It's enormous on the inside.
I mean, people that aren't familiar, you know, we had a couple people that had never even been in a Passat and had no idea what to expect. And you get in that thing, and it's just a ton of space. And it feels like a full-size car inside. It drives nice, small turbo engine, but a lot of power. It's fun to drive. But again, that's probably one of the older designs in there, and you still have to worry about where Volkswagen is on their reliability situation. And fourth place was Mazda 6, which is always a
Just a favorite of ours.
Yeah, I mean, and
That's a good-looking car.
For all the same reasons. We talked about how they all look the same. That's probably the only one that doesn't. That and the Hyundai maybe that don't look the same. And it's always fun to drive. That one's a little bit noisy.
I want to talk a little bit about.
Yeah.
I want to talk about number 10, the last place car, which I think surprised everybody.
That was definitely a shock for sure because it's the most recent redesign of anybody. I mean,
the Toyota Camry.
Yeah, it wasn't even on sale when we did this. So,
and I just spent a lot of time in the car myself, and they, it's a mid-cycle refresh, but they actually have done a lot to the car, and I really liked the car. I thought it rode much better than Camrys in the past, handled better, it felt better, just all the way around. And the powertrains have always been very good. But you folks in your test singled out one thing in particular that really sort of degraded how you felt about the car.
Well, there were a couple things. The interior fit and finish was, I think, the biggest.
In the
thing.
SE, you had a lower mid-level.
Yeah, it did not look up to the standards of everything else in the segment. There's also another one that was pretty noisy. Both in the powertrain and wind noise. So
I have to say that there's a price cap on this class, right?
I think it was $27,000.
$27,000, and so a lot of everything is based on how the manufacturers package these cars to send to this test and how much they can put in the car for the price.
Correct.
And so if the car is a relatively expensive car and they don't put as many features in, obviously it's not as good a value for the money, and that may have hurt the Camry.
Yeah, I think so. And the winning formula seems to be get as close as you can to that price, and prioritize interior features and comfort features.
Stuff you touch every day.
Yeah, over 17-inch wheels or a rear spoiler or whatever, stuff like that.
But we've got obviously the video on our website at motorweek.org. But for full details, where do you go?
Cars.com, usatoday.com.
Basically, cars.com. Has all the complete rundown of how everything did. Very good. It was a good test and very interesting for anybody looking for a larger family car, which a lot of people are. Speaking of large, now let's go a little bit downstream. We all thought that midsize and compact pickup trucks were pretty much dead when the Ford Ranger went away. We've got a couple of old ones out there. Chevrolet Colorado and GMC Canyon stopped production. But now they are back. The 2015 Chevrolet Colorado and GMC Canyon have been reborn, if it were, after a couple of years of hiatus. They are now, before, midsize pickup trucks. They're going to have a diesel engine in about a year. This is actually GM's answer to Ford's aluminum F-150, saying if you don't need that big a truck, you don't have to go way out on aluminum to get better fuel economy. Okay, let's open it up. We've got one in here. What do you think?
Huge. It's huge.
It's not small.
It's not small.
It's what, 6 inches shorter than a full-size Silverado?
It's basically what a full-size was 15 years ago.
Yeah. That was the biggest shock to me. Other than that, I really haven't spent a ton of time in it. But
I lined it up next to my Ranger, and I think there's 2 feet difference in length. I mean, it's a big truck.
Yeah. Inherent with these smaller trucks is a rougher ride than a full-size truck. And that's something that I'm never going to get accustomed to. I would just spend the extra money and get a full-size.
Yeah, I love the fact that they're doing it. I mean, I think the fact that no American company is building a small or mid-sized pickup was an atrocity. So I'm glad they're doing it. But the problem still remains of how do you make a smaller pickup that's more fuel efficient and costs less? I mean, that's why they went away, is because you can get a base F-150 or a base Ram for less than what these things cost.
Well, they've priced this truck very competitively, at least at the bottom end of the spear. So actually,
was it 24 stars?
Yeah, and now you're looking at full-size trucks with anything other than a work truck being more than that.
But what's the transaction price? It's not going to be 25.
But I don't think it's going to be.
It's going to be low to mid
30s. Yeah. I own a Ranger. And we don't need in our household a full-size truck. So we like something a little smaller. I have to admit, this would be appealing versus even a full-size, but not as appealing because it's not that small. So I don't know.
Do you think there's a market, I personally do, for a much smaller truck?
I do too.
That could, with a price point that would put it at a nice third vehicle just to have around.
Yeah, and mid-20s MPGs, easy to park.
Yeah.
And
Basically,
And we all thought there was going to be one from India, but it didn't pan out.
I think Ford would be the perfect one to do it. I mean, they got all the small EcoBoost engines. With the 1.5 liter or the 2 liter EcoBoost, it can be a crossover based. You know, it doesn't have to be when you're talking recreational use, it doesn't have to be a real steel frame. It can be on the Escape or one of their crossover platforms. I think they would sell a ton of those.
But now it's clear why they didn't bring the redesigned Ranger into the U.S. is because it's as big as this Colorado and Canyon, and it's steel bodied and won't get as good a fuel economy as the new aluminum F-150. So, but you're right. It probably needs to be a player that's not in the market right now.
Yeah, it's similar to like the Honda Ridgeline. Not a true truck. Guys look at it and laugh, but then people that don't want a real truck, they just need a little bed space and want a comfortable vehicle to drive every day. Something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're not redoing the Ridgeline, but I guess it's.
I don't know. They go
I've
back
heard
and forth on
back
it.
and forth,
Yeah.
so I don't really know what. It sounded like maybe they're going to come out with something else.
Yeah, I think we're going to wait until this next Odyssey comes out because that's the platform. So
Anyway, if you're looking for something that's not quite as big as a full-size pickup truck, we're generally quite favorable on the Colorado
It's
and
quite
Canyon.
comfortable.
one more
Very
thing
comfortable.
just
Yeah.
to chime in. I mean, the ride quality, I know, and interior quality especially. I mean, Ben said it's a little bit of a rough ride, but
interior quality and comfort are way up, though.
yeah, compared
yeah.
to the only two other trucks in the segment, which are the Frontier and the Tacoma.
Which are like
There's
almost
no
10 years old.
comparison.
Yeah, there's absolutely no comparison.
I agree.
All right. We just got to get that in there.
Very nice trucks and good fit and finish. Okay, let's move on to another pair, but this time of the same, another pair. 2015 Mercedes-Benz GLA. Okay, we've had two versions of it in back to back.
There's
The
a
base
lot of-
250 and the 45 AMG. All right, everybody. You know, we had this in the same time as we had the Macan, so it was kind of an interesting comparison. But so why don't that can come up in your conversation as well. What did you think about the GLA?
There was a lot of controversy between this car, between Robinson and I. Ooh. I see it as a hot. Well, the AMG
hot
version, I see
hatchback.
it as a hot hatch.
I do too.
I was surprised at how small it was, and
Me too.
yeah, it's cool. The AMG, this CLA or GLA 250, is similar to the CLA in that it's such a base vehicle that it almost doesn't seem like a Mercedes-Benz. I mean, it's a little nicer than the CLA, I thought, the base CLA. I think they did a good job of that. But, I mean, the one you want would be the GLA 45, and then
But it's so expensive.
It's 65 grand.
but then you
for
can
a-
buy two GTIs for that
I know.
price and have more room and almost as much performance.
I had a guy walk over to me while I was filling it up at the gas station and begin to ask me how I got those Mercedes rims on my Mazda 3. And I stood back.
You're like,
I stood
check
back,
yourself, fool.
I stood back and I looked at the car. And I was
Oh, my
like, he's
goodness.
right. This car does profile look like a Mazda 3.
You have to look at it
Interesting.
for a while, and it's something that I think at first it kind of turns me away. I don't necessarily like it, but the more I look at it, the more I can wrap my head around it. But I still don't think I'm fully around it. It's kind of small inside.
It's small inside.
Yep.
I spent a lot more time, I think, in the 45. That thing's a beast, man. That 2-liter turbo puts out so much freaking power. It's crazy.
The most powerful four-cylinder on the market.
I thought it
It's
was
the most
it
powerful
was a
four-cylinder on
lot
the
of
market.
fun.
It was fun.
It was a lot.
But it
of
needs a
fun.
manual transmission because I see it as a hot
gonna
hatch
happen.
without a
Yeah.
manual trans, which bums me out.
And it was so noisy inside. I was kind of
it's
surprised
so
by
loud.
that.
Yeah, it's loud.
And actually,
I loved it, though.
Yeah,
I liked it, but my wife was like, "Oh, she was done after like an hour. She was like done."
when we were sitting,
And that's who's probably going to drive those.
when we were moving around just for stand-ups, when I was just letting it idle, it actually hurt my ears at how low the frequency was. It was a really weird feeling. It would drive you insane after a
I
while.
think, well, that WRX, that long-term STI that we had, was louder, I thought.
Let's do a little comparison though to the Macan. I mean, it was the AMG at 65 grand was a lot of money for that size of vehicle.
The
I mean,
Macan that we had in was
80,
Yeah.
and like
And
oh
no
my
backup camera.
gosh, and no backup camera.
Well, the GLA 250 was in the 40s starting.
Where is this market going? And
bizarre.
these things are selling. I understand the Macan is flying off the lots.
It's the fastest growing segment out there: luxury compact crossovers.
From what I remember, the Macan is a lot. Well, maybe not a lot, but
It's
substantially bigger.
I would say substantially.
I wouldn't say
Definitely more
substantially.
interior space.
if you
more
look
interior.
if you look at it from the outside, you're like, wow, yeah. It's
The Macan looks
completely
higher
different.
off the ground,
Yeah.
wider, longer. Everything,
You're not
but
going
it's
to call
not.
the Macan a hot hatch, that's for sure.
Right.
It's got an
know.
aggressive. It's got a stance to it.
We'll
that's-
drive it. It's pretty.
It's a little more rounded, looking like. It looks.
It
I
looks-
agree with that.
yeah.
I was surprised that the GLA 250 here looked a lot closer to the AMG than in the CLAs. I remember there was a huge drop off in exterior look from the CLA 250 to the CLA 45.
Well, I think it did have like the AMG Sport package.
Oh,
It
did have AMG.
Never mind. Ignore me.
But I was upset to see that it didn't have keyless entry or push button start
Yeah, that's a big turn off.
included, which, I mean, to start in the 40s without that is rough.
You know, it makes the new small entry from Lexus look really good, I think.
Yeah, I haven't spent a whole lot of time in that one. You've driven it, Ben. Where would you put that in?
The RC?
No, the
NX.
NX.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I was not a fan of the NX, basically because I don't care for how it looks. But I actually think in comparison, it now holds up really well against these.
Well, bottom line, Mercedes was like the only glaring omission in the segment. I mean, every luxury maker had a compact ute, so it was just a matter of time before they joined in. I don't know. I'm not sure how well it'll do.
I don't know.
not
They
sure
seem to people.
I did have somebody
seem to like them,
I did have somebody stop me on the road and ask what it was. So
I thought the standard 250 was a nice vehicle. I mean, I didn't have a problem with that. I think that's one that you could get some practicality out of, but they are small.
And pricey.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our lightning round. Our panelists, all of us, have 2 minutes to debate a trending
2 minutes
automotive
each?
topic.
I think so, yeah.
2 minutes for Greg.
Gas prices in recent months have fallen noticeably, and prices tend to fluctuate up and down like this. But if gas continues to remain at relatively affordable prices until the next world crisis, I guess, what will this mean for the short-term demand for EVs and other alt-fuel vehicles, especially as they try to gain wider popularity? Darn good question, and I think we all know what the immediate answer is. Sales are going to drop off.
Yeah, we were talking about it a little bit the other day, and yeah, it's amazing how fickle people are. I mean, gas gets down below $3 a gallon, and it's like, oh, I can go out and buy a full-size SUV now.
Used Hummer prices are way up.
And it's like, wait a minute, don't you think that maybe they might go up in 6 months from now? I don't know. Am I overthinking it?
yeah, it's like as soon as it's like 301 to 299, it's like a huge. It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, about 5 years ago, when it dipped down to $2 and something, my wife and I almost bought an H2.
See, case in point. The interesting thing is this is actually a huge buying opportunity, or it's going to be over the next 3 or 4, maybe 6 months for if you're looking at an EV or the current generation Volt, because the new Volt's going to be announced in January. There's going to be some incredibly inexpensive leases out there.
And even Priuses. For years, you could never even see one in the dealership. Now they're like tons of them in dealers, and then you get a super cheap lease.
The leases are going to change that much, like that quickly?
They have every time gas has dropped before. I mean, I can remember there was a point where the lease was what? There was one with $99 a month, but $199 leases on Volts. They've come back and gone away several times, probably be back. Leaf already dropped their price by decontenting, so they'll do a cheap lease. Ford, the Ford Focus electric is probably going to have a good lease on it. The point is, I generally recommend if you're looking at an EV or something like an advanced hybrid like the Volt that you look at the leases because they're often extremely, extremely attractive.
Yeah, and you don't want to have to replace batteries on your own dime at some point either.
So, and if sales fall off because of fuel economy, which looks very likely, all of these hybrids and EVs and so forth are going to have some very good values. So it might be the time, if you're looking for one as a second or third car, to be looking at them.
Do you feel that diesel is going to follow suit?
It's like a half ring.
I think that's another topic, but I think it's worth answering because diesel fuel is still going to stay at a premium, and there's a lot of indication it's not going to come down nearly as fast as gas. I think it's going to it could short-term help diesel a little bit, but long-term for wide acceptance, it's definitely going to hurt. That's my
It's more about the conversation than the time limit.
That's right. Okay. Now
for people timing at home,
before we
really
answer
frustrating.
our viewer question from Jeffrey Woodard, Jeff, I think you need a calculator. and Jeff, we all said at our desk, if this was a math problem, you were successful because I think we all did this. Here's the question. He's put this question to us. Which would be cheaper, driving a car 2,500 miles and staying in an $80 a night motel, or driving a motorhome, so you don't need a motel. Let's say, I assume he's going to park it at Walmart overnight. Let's say the car gets 40 miles per gallon on the highway, okay, and the motorhome gets about 9. Okay, I actually did some math. My calculation is that if you drove 500 miles a day, Jeff, you're still better off with the car than the motorhome. But with that said, really, Jeff?
Well, there's so many variables here. I mean, first of all, I would drive way more than 500 miles a day. But that's
in a
besides-
motorhome? Driving a motorhome that
What?
500 miles?
You drive a moterhome more than 500 miles a day?
Sure, why not? I mean, get on the highway and set the cruise at 70. Wouldn't
That would mentally drain me. Just keeping
That's
that
what
thing
long
in
haul
between
truck
the
drivers
lines.
could do.
You know, not to mention if you're getting 9 miles per gallon in your motorhome, that's a pretty small motorhome, unless you've got a diesel. So, yeah. I don't know. You can whichever one you want to do, you'll make it work. I mean, put it that way. Plus, you can't guarantee you get a hotel room for $80 a night everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's so many variables here. Whichever one you want to do.
And also a 40
Make a
mile per
case
gallon
for it.
car, I guess we were talking about, maybe something like an Accord hybrid, or for that may a Camry hybrid might do it, but otherwise you're talking about a pretty small
A
car.
small car, correct.
Yeah, with it sounds like you're going to be taking a lot of luggage too.
I don't know, Jeff. It seems to me whichever one of these two options floats your boats. I'm not sure there's a purely on dollar and cents basis. Probably the car is the winner, but you give up a lot of room and
I
luxury
would take
for
the
that.
motorhome just for the fact that everyone else can get up and wander around while you're driving. You can set the cruise control and do the switcheroo.
And you can go wander around.
Yeah, do the switcheroo and go back to the fridge and get something to drink. And
But not while you're driving.
And the camping at Walmart for free, you definitely meet some interesting people having done that, and it's a great lifestyle. I say go for it.
Spoken from our true RV amongst our group. Oh, Jeff, we're having fun with you. I hope you have a thick skin, but thanks very much for the question. And by the way, if you've got other questions for us that we can use in our podcast, please send them in to us. Well, that seems to wrap up our MotorWeek podcast number 107. I want to thank everyone around our table, our writer, producer, and two-wheeling reporter, Brian Robinson, our road test producer, Ben Davis, our assistant producer, Greg Carlos, our writer and also the podcast producer, Patrick Lucas, our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, who's always in the back room making sure we sound intelligent despite what we say, and, of course, our podcast creator, Bob Mixter. To all of you out there, thank you very much for listening. Thanks also for watching MotorWeek on your local public television station and also on the Velocity cable channel. Till next time, I'm John Davis. For all of us at MotorWeek, be safe, and thanks for watching and listening to MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by Die Hard. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series, each week on your local PBS station.